After an hour or so of silent riding, the Imperium's easternmost city, Seterex, was visible, its walls looming like a monolith over frozen plains. The outside boundaries, known as the Fields of Kent, were quiet this night. All that could be heard were the click of the horses' hooves against the frozen roads. Suddenly, Veliana's voice broke the silence. "You know, Vold, despite how much shit I give you, I do appreciate all you did to help me track that little cock. Mind you, I'd probably have found him without you, but it would have been a real bitch of a job." She turned her masked face to him. "I suppose what I'm trying to say, because you seem to need so much affirmation, is that I appreciate your help. Despite being a human, you've the tracking abilities that rival some of my old colleagues back in Nisrith, and it's simply known that we Akieri have better senses than your kind." Vold laughed. "Well, I will take that as a compliment, Veliana. What I find most astounding about this is that you seem to have a soft side after all." Veliana responded with a light chuckle. "I wouldn't take that from this by any means. I'm merely showing some professional appreciation for some damned efficient help, even if you don't have a pair of balls." The click of hooves slowed as their horses approached the eastern gates of Seterex, eventually coming to a complete halt. Veliana looked at an on-duty guardsman and presented her bounty posting. The guard responded with a nod, before looking upwards to the gatehouse overlook, and giving a small gesture with his hand. He returned his gaze to Veliana and gave another nod. Veliana responded in kind as the large portcullis gate slowly groaned open, flecks of snow and frost being slowly pushed off. With a loud, resonating click, the gate locked open, and the two wanderers slowly rode in. As the gate moaned shut behind the mounted seekers, the masked woman turned to Vold. "We're going to go to Hugh put out the contract, and I'm going to see if I can haggle some more pay out of the old coot." She began to dismount, "and I'm going to let him know that we have more information. There's little I love more than work that leads to more work." Vold followed suit, dismounting and handing the reins over to the stable hand. "It sounds as though you have it planned out, my Akieri friend. Let us depart, then." Veliana gave a nod, and after handing her reins over as well, proceeded west, down the road at a brisk pace. Her eyes darted between the people passing by. Seterex may be one of the Imperium's most profitable cities, but it also was dangerous at this time of night. Though, she thought, not many would try to harass two armed individuals, unless they traveled in a group. They passed the East Horn, and the masked mercenary gave a quick glance into the open front doors. It appeared busy tonight, which potentially meant trouble. They proceeded onward, Veliana's steel boots resonating against the cobblestone road, and her blades rattling at her side. Vold, by contrast, was rather quiet, his padded leather making little to no noise, paired with his innate sense of stealth as a professional hunter. Eventually, the two reached a rather large manor house with a wide arching door. Veliana looked to the moon, noting the time of night, before giving the door 3 quick knocks. The two hunters waited for only a few moments before the door swung open, and they were greeted by a thin, well-dressed man.
"Yes?"
the skinny man questioned, as he eyed the two suspiciously. Veliana held out the bounty posting. "Need to speak to Abram about the contract." Shallow eyes looked at the bounty, then at Veliana.
"Come in, then. I'm sure Lord Elbrox would love to speak to you. Perhaps you should dress accordingly."
"I'm dressed according to my trade, broomstick. Now let me in." The man pursed his lips.
"Very well. Come in and take a seat."
He gestured down a long hallway, where a large ottoman was visible. Veliana looked at the ottoman, and then back to the man. "Okay, go get your master." She shooed him away with one hand before looking over and beckoning Vold with a head movement. The man was visibly offended, but left nonetheless. The two mercenaries entered as he disappeared into a nearby room. Their boots clicked against the polished wood flooring, which didn't creak or rattle. It was nearly perfect by design. Veliana looked around and admired the general construct of the building. Everything was very finely made. The floor was made of polished wood, laid about in interesting patterns seeming to swirl inward. This large guest room had 3 great glistening silver pillars, holding the ceiling up like the arms of some forgotten demigod. Eventually her gaze fell down, and she could see that there was before her the great padded ottoman of exquisite leather, which outstretched for lounging. There were 2 smaller chairs which looked equally comfortable, but more bland in design. She couldn't resist laying down on the ottoman. The masked hunter let out a groan as all of her tired bones relaxed upon this pillowy savior.
Oh, I've not rested my bones in so fucking long, Vold. Sometimes I forget what rest is like.
Vold responded with an empathetic nod before slowly sitting down on one of the secondary chairs. Almost synonymous with the creak of his body meeting the seat, a door on the side of the room flung open, revealing a portly gentleman in a rather nice nightgown, and a well-oiled head of no hair. This portly man walked into the room, the faintest pitter-patter coming from his bare feet. His eyes fell on Veliana, and he licked his bulbous lips.
No, no, my dear. You do not come into my humble abode in such uncomfortable clothes. Please, rest down. Make yourself comfortable.
He reached down, quickly unfastening part of her leather armor, revealing some of her skin beneath. The Achiari reacted immediately, her body launching up. A gauntlet gripped his active hand and firmly twisted it. The man let out a quiet yelp as Veliana leaned in to where, were her face not obscured under a mask, he would feel her breath on his face. "I ain't here to plow ya," yelled Pervert. "I'm here to collect, and I've the head of he who robbed ya." She released his hand after a moment. Abram pulled his hand back, shaking it.
That was very rude, little girl. If I didn't know better, I'd give you a spanking.
Veliana nearly leapt off the ottoman to her feet. "All right, this isn't getting through to you, is it?" Her words came out slowly and deliberately. "I am not going to plow you. I don't care how you treat your harlots here in Seterex. I'm not one of them. I'm here for my money, and then I'll be on my way. However, if you're done getting touchy, I do have information for you." Lord Elbrox blew on his hand and looked up with a grin. His eyes were lingering on Veliana's chest, not raising his gaze a bit.
"All right, then. I'm listening."
The woman looked at Vold, who had an incredibly uncomfortable look on his face, and then back to Abram. "Okay, fine, so long as you don't touch." She unfastened the soggy pouch on her belt and tossed it into Lord Elbrox's lap. "I lopped his head off. Not like he'll be missing it. He was as stupid as the day is long. I have information on those who contracted him, and I can hunt them down. But I need some incentive. Your payment of 300 Etvar seems rather measly for the amount of work that this'll take." The portly lord nodded, still not looking Veliana in the eyes.
"I'll pay you 3,000 if you'll let me show you the night of your life."
A large gust of air expelled from the man's mouth as the mercenary's fist met his protruding stomach.
"You are not getting it!"
Veliana pulled her fist back, letting the man grapple at his sore stomach. 4,000, non-negotiable. I'll get your stupid antique whatever it was, kill the ever-loving shit out of whoever hired the professional idiot to take it, and I'm not going to fuck you. Deal? Deal. Oh, and I'm going to need 300 in advance, for incentive. Yeah? She held out her hand as the agonized Lord Elbrox glared.
"If you insist upon it."
He reached into his robe and paused, giving the woman one last glare before procuring a small pouch of jingling silvers. She snatched her pay from the staggering lord before she turned on her heel and walked to the door, leaving the imperial lord groaning in pain. Vold followed suit. She exited out into the cold night, slamming the doors behind her, and fastened her armor back together as she felt the cold gust of air on her chest. Vold was silent for several moments, before speaking up.
Does that happen often?
What?
Clients wanting to take advantage of you for payment.
Veliana sighed. Oh, you have no idea, Huntsman. I'm a Tremieri, so I'm exotic to these imbeciles. And I don't know how you wasters handle it, but here in the cities, women seem to just be playthings to the nobility. The two began to walk toward the East Horn in absolute silence.